What's up, fellow gamers? Worlds is coming. As always, the League of Legends World Championship is played on one single patch throughout the whole tournament, and that patch is 9.19. I don't know why I did that. This patch just went live last Wednesday, and World starts right about now, so there's a watch under there, right about now. So let's talk about which champions we'll continue to see, which ones are departing the pro meta, and who's coming in fresh off the bench. Let's go lane by lane, rip that show, and talk about the who's who of pro play, compiled off the last few weeks of LCS, LEC, LMS, LPL, and LCK, that's the power rank games. Pro Play's favorite top laners are Aatrox, Renekton, Gangplank, Kennen, Camille, Akali, and Karma. Aatrox got hit very, very hard with the nerf bat, losing both healing and wave clear against enemy minion waves. Though some of the nerfs were walked back in 9.19 itself, he's definitely fallen down substantially and will be more of a rarity in pro play as a result. Akali lost the stun on her ultimate and had its cooldown increased as well, while Karma lost a very small amount of power through an AP ratio nerf on her Q. Otherwise, the popular top laners were all untouched, and most of those faces will remain popular at Worlds this year. Potentially joining their ranks through recent buffs are Shen, Ryze, and Fiora. We've also got Ornn and Sion who got some small buffs, but pros aren't really trying to play tanks in the top lane right now, so it looks like we're in for high damage top laners, whether they're melee or ranged, dealing physical or magic damage. Now it's time for the jungle. The jungle is going to see a lot shaken up compared to the patch these teams all qualified on. Sejuani, Gragas, Jarvan, Elise, Sylas, Skarner, Olaf, and Lee Sin were the most important junglers in pro play, and the top end of Sejuani, Gragas, and Sylas all saw nerfs. All three of them deal less damage, with Sylas also losing a bunch of armor, which is an even bigger deal in the physical damage-heavy jungle. Now, none of these nerfs are big enough to remove them from pro play, with the exception of Sylas maybe leaving the jungle for good, but the buffs to other junglers are just as important. Lee Sin, Rek'Sai, and Xin Zhao were already in the pro meta to varying degrees, and they all see buffs in time for Worlds. Now, there was certainly a lack of high physical damage jungle options to complement the magic damage ones, so this does give a bit more room for double AP in the lanes in team compositions. The biggest new name is Jungle. No, you aren't misunderstanding me. I mean Jungle. Whatever. Back in 9.16, he saw buffs to his E and R, and in 9.18, there were buffs to his W. So now he deals more damage, stuns for longer, has better mana cost, and can ult to save himself more frequently. Even super popular in solo queue, has a very high win rate, and teams already want magic damage options out of the jungle. So I definitely expect to see frequent jungle at Worlds this year. For those who don't get the joke, we're talking about Jungle Echo. Keep up. Ultimately, we're looking at a mix of tanks and fighters, and while most of the champions played are physical heavy, you've still got some magic damage options through Elise, Gragas, and. Okay, so I know Reddit loved to say that mid lane was only Corki Azir every game, and even at their height, that wasn't really true, but regardless, let's talk about the options in mid lane. Akali, Corki, Sylas, Azir, Qiyana, Karma, Aatrox, Irelia, and Zoe were the most relevant picks here when teams qualified for Worlds, and we will see some variation. As we mentioned in the top lane section, Akali has nerfs to her ultimate that knock her down a peg, but I still expect to see her at Worlds. Corki was still a meaningful pick even after his Giga nerfs. Sylas loses a bit of his wave clear and takes more physical damage, which will soften him somewhat in mid lane, but he should still be around. Azir was nerfed for the worst Q cooldown, but also still saw play after those took effect. Qiyana loses some damage on her E and has a worse ultimate cooldown, and Karma has that love tap nerf to her Q that I mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, Aatrox got hit with a train. So far, we're 7 for 7. Champion number 8 is Irelia, who is untouched, and number 9 is Zoe, who got minor buffs to her passive. Don't worry, we're not done. Ryze got some small buffs because, let's be real, it's Worlds, and you can't have Worlds without Ryze running around, and there are also some very large buffs to both Galio and Twisted Fate that will do very important things for the pro scene. Whew, there's more. Finally, CLG and TSM fans can rejoice because Power of Evil's Orianna and Bjergsen's Syndra got some nice buffs as well, and I have 3 bold predictions here. Number 1, every game PoE plays will see Orianna banned. Second, Bjergsen won't lose a single game at Worlds this year on Syndra. And third, because let's be real, this is NA, neither CLG nor TSM will make it out of groups this year. So mid lane looks like it will have a mix of assassins and teamfight mages. We'll even see some Renekton counter picks against the squishy melee ones. Should make for a very exciting lane this world. Now let me just say, I really like how Riot's handled bot lane balance coming into Worlds this year. While top only saw one meaningful change and mid lane arguably saw too many, bot lane is a bunch of very small changes that nudge the game into a healthy direction in my opinion. So first things first, every team pretty much ever only played 2 champions in bot lane, Kai'Sa and Xayah. They were in pretty much every game. Ezreal and Lucian were in there sometimes, and Varus was sitting alone in 5th place, which no one really cared about. And I honestly feel bad for the guy. He's not cool like the other Darkin with the sick double A thing going on. He's not cool like the other marksmen because they're all better than him. So, unlucky. He's also not getting buffed, so no world skin for Varus this year. Now, instead, we're going to see small nerfs to Kai'Sa, moderate nerfs to Xayah, and depending on your league of choice, Ezreal either got nerfed before or after the playoffs, but remains a fairly popular pick all the same. I should also mention Sivir, who got hit pretty hard in 9-16 and disappeared as a result. For buffs, we've got Ashe, Caitlyn, Jhin, Kalista, Misfortune, Vayne, and Lucian all getting stronger since playoffs. I will forever remember the words of then G2 player Sven, who said Caitlyn is a dog champion right before she took over the world's meta in 2017. And then quite unlike Caitlyn, he stopped being relevant. So take pro players with a grain of salt. The point of the story is to say that pros are still just playing Kai'Sa, Lucian, Ezreal, and Xayah in solo queue, and who knows if they'll discover that there are in fact other viable options. Finally, let's talk about the most important role in the game, which is support. It's so important that Doublelift himself realized he needed to take over for former world champion Core JJ and himself play Sona every game. After all, Doublelift is the best player in the world named Doublelift, so it's his right. Hang on, I've got another version of this joke. Finally, let's talk about the most important role in the game, support. It's so important that Team Liquid realized they actually wanted 2 supports in every game. After all, it's much easier to convince Doublelift to join the team at Baron instead of split pushing against Malzahar without Quicksilver Sash, or face checking a Victor with every cooldown available when his role is simply to support the team instead of making bad plays by himself. Ultimately, and seriously, support has a few interesting faces that we should talk about. Pick-wise, the pro meta stacks up with Rakan, Tahm Kench, Nautilus, Alistar, Braum, Thresh, Yuumi, and Volibear as the big pro champions. Yes, Volibear support, and no, they're not trolling. Similar to the top lane pool, there actually aren't a lot of changes here. Rakan's priority indirectly goes down because Xayah is getting nerfed, and the number 2 pick in Tahm Kench did get some direct nerfs in 9.16 and even larger ones in 9.19, making him more easily harassed in the early game. Otherwise, the list is pretty stable until we get to Yuumi, who's getting some really big nerfs to repelling projectile slow that might finally take her off the ban list. Meanwhile, Leona was right behind Volibear in popularity and sees a buff to her Q cooldown, and on top of that, Shen had some damage buffs in 9.16 that gets him into the pro scene as well. We're mostly going to see melee fight-starting supports at Worlds this year, with safe enchanters like Janna and Soraka being very unlikely. Similarly, I don't expect to see mage supports like Zyra or Vel'Koz either. So, go watch Worlds! Go on, get out of here. Show's over. Go watch Worlds. Shoo. Worlds. Bye.